I'm here with Marisa Duran, the voice actress of many, many people, but for you guys on the channel, you guys know them as Moda the Milk Maid, the icon of One Piece itself. Marisa, how are you doing on this fine day? I know we've been talking for like 15 minutes, but how are you
It's
doing?
true. No, I'm good. This morning I went and I got coffee with my friends. They're both named Kelsey. It was very fun. And then came home and was like, all right, I have my water bottle and we're ready to rock and roll.
Awesome. Awesome. Shouts to Kelsey and Kelsey. Are they
That's right.
spelled like the same as well?
Yes,
Oh,
we
amazing.
sure are.
Amazing.
Yeah,
As a Kevin, you get used to hearing many Kevins. So this is just,
exactly.
it's satisfying, especially with the KE at the start too. It's like, oh yeah. Firstly, this is kind of like spiel-y, but we got to know who you are, Marissa. So first and foremost, like what got you into like art in general? Was there like that epiphany moment or?
Oh my gosh, this is always such a fun story to tell. So
Mhm.
I got started in theater when I was in second grade. My mom actually enrolled me in this like 2 or 3 week summer variety camp. Little did she know that it would lead to all of this for the rest of my
Yeah.
life. But yeah, I did theater for years, since second grade. And then I got my BFA in acting
Oh,
and
nice.
kind of discovered on camera work while I was in college. And I really thought I would do more like film TV stuff because I really liked it. And then accidentally fell into voiceover. There was
Okay.
this theater e-blast that would go out each week, and it was like local theater auditions, but sometimes there were auditions for like other random stuff in there too. And one day Funimation at the time happened to have an open casting call, so I was like, well, I like auditioning because I'm weird. So I sent an email and got an audition time, showed up to the studio that day, had never done voiceover in my life. They were like, hey, pick 3 sides out of this binder, and there was one with male characters and one with female characters. I was like, okay. So I picked my 3 and then went into the booth and like recorded them and then heard nothing for 6 months. And
Well,
in
hey.
theater, I know in theater, if you don't hear anything in 2 weeks, it's like, well, I didn't book it. Well,
Yeah.
6 months rolls by and I forget I even auditioned. And then I just get an email out of the blue one day and they're like, hey, can you come record Walla on Showman Sample? And I was like, I don't know what Walla is, but sure. My first session was November of 2015. So it's been 8 years, which is
Wow.
wild.
Almost
That's,
a decade. Almost a
I
decade on the
know.
grind.
It's freaking weird. But yeah, that's how I got started. And then just did random background voices for several years, just
Mhm.
sporadically. And then booked my first named role in 2021. And that was Kyoko Hori and Horimiya. And it's just been like a steady climb since then. It's been really fun.
Yeah, I was gonna mention this later, but I think this is just so cool how you see the progress in your career, like as you go on like for example, like behind the voice actors or like one of those websites or something like that. And then you're just like, oh, main character? Oh, another main character? It's so like cool. You see the exponential like the growth. So that's just so
Yeah.
inherently satisfying. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's been a huge blessing because like I don't know, voice acting, there's like no one path, right, to success, and there's no like it's all over the place. Like you never know if you'll book a lead again, you never know if it's going to be supporting. So each season it's just like all over the place.
Mhm.
So I've been very lucky to have had a number of leads at this point, for sure.
And I thought it was really cool how you had so many different like avenues as well. Like you said, you started in theater and then you wanted to do like TV stuff as well. Was there a specific theater, like for example, like I used to be somewhat of a theater kid, not like to the, how there's like theater kids, but then there's like theater kids. Like I was like one of the lesser, like I'm like, this is fun, but I don't know things. You know what I mean?
That's fair. I have to think because I it's so funny because I feel like the theater kids are like the musical theater kids that won't stop singing like in the halls.
Oh yeah.
Um, which is like a horrible stereotype probably. But I was never one of those kids that was like knew all of the musical theater things. It
Mhm.
was like I knew plays because I was really more about like the acting side of things than like the singing side of things. And I've always loved Shakespeare, but I my go-to musicals it was like I love Wicked, and people
Ah,
were like,
I
"Really?"
love Wicked.
I
Yeah.
right.
It's like there's a reason it's good, guys. There's a reason people know what it is.
I'm
Like
saying I was like the kid who like knew plays rather than
mhm.
like the kid that knew musicals.
No kids going out to see Oklahoma. They're going out to see The Lion King. Like there's just such a distinct difference, you know what I mean?
There kind of is a little bit.
That's so crazy that you mentioned Shakespeare as well. My little cousins, they're just recently were in like this big Shakespeare thing at their school, and it's just like you see the passion, and it's just so cool.
Yeah. I think it's just I love words and I love language and using words to express ourselves in different
Mhm.
ways and just how poetic it is. The sounds of his words tell you exactly what emotional path you need to take, which is insane. And there's still like you can add subtext to it, but it's a roadmap. Everything you need, he's already given you, and I think that's
Mhm.
incredibly cool.
Yeah, I totally agree. When I was younger, I was kind of in like not an edgy phase, but like in a phase where it's like, do people need to have all these flowery words and all these like over the top language? You know what I mean? And I felt as though that as I've matured, you realize that when characters do talk in a very blunt and easily understood way, it is, there is not as much subtext, like you were just saying. And having characters and stories that are written in a way where people can interpret it many different ways makes the characters like not inherently more interesting, but it adds a different layer to them. And I think that's just always
Yeah.
so cool, you know?
Exactly. And maybe that's why I like enjoy voiceover so much because the focus is on the words,
Mhm.
because we're given flaps that we need to match. But I have the video and then I have the script with the adaptation that we've been given. And so the focus is not on what I am wearing or what I look like. The focus is on what I'm saying. And I really
Mhm.
like that.
Obviously, in theater, especially in theater, actually, it's about how you move your body, it's about how you move your face, and just the voice, obviously, of course, especially if they're singing. But with voiceover stuff, it's all about the voice and how you project yourself, how you enunciate specific things. And I think that can really like heighten a scene. This is a pretty basic example, obviously, but lots of people get attached to like the sub or dub, the agendas of the sub or dub. For example, there are some dubs that are like seemingly like iconic in a state where it's like you cannot watch it without this because of the amount of emotion that they're allowed to convey. When I think about one in specific, there was one that I saw, it was called Parasite. It was pretty cool. It was about aliens and stuff.
Yep.
um yeah, and just the way that they conveyed themselves with the lack of emotion or the emotion was just really really great to me because it showed how they can take something that I probably wouldn't be able to like. Obviously I don't know Japanese and I'm not Japanese. So obviously being able to transfer that into English in such a simple way was just great to me. And it showed to me that dubs are always useful because, for example, some people just can't read that fast. Like, let's be for real. Some people can't. And people could get attached because of things like that. The simplicity of, oh, that doesn't sound as human as it should normally, something like that. So,
Yeah. And I know a lot of people really like to multitask while they're watching anime, but
mhm.
if you are watching the subtitles, you have to stay focused on it. Whereas if you're listening to the dub, you can just listen and then you pick up exactly what you need at the same time. So you can like wash the dishes and
Mhm.
listen to your anime at the same time.
Exactly. It's like you're just chilling. You're not trying to watch it to be like in pain. Obviously you are, but like
Right.
not in pain, but in the pain like you're invested. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One thing I did want to bring up as well is you mentioned TV and film. Was there like a specific role or something that inspired you when you were younger, like a specific character or something like that you were like, oh, I would love to be this in the future. This is like my dream goal or something like that.
That is such a good question because I don't know if I really set out for on camera work with this intention of like, this is a role that I'd love to play someday. In
Hmm.
theater, I had dream roles, but maybe that's because I
Yeah.
had spent my entire life doing shows and gaining that knowledge of shows. But I'm trying to even think. I just loved the challenge of it being so different from theater because
Hmm.
when you're on stage, assuming it's like your typical proscenium and the audience is huge, you have to be a little bit more exaggerated and larger than life. And that doesn't mean that your character isn't grounded in realism because what they're feeling is real and you want to emote properly. But your gestures and everything have to be a little bit bigger. And I myself am very expressive. So it was like an easy adjustment for me. But on camera work, the camera's right here. They see everything. And I remember I took a class once with a casting director and the guy was like, you blink too much. And I was like, my eyes are dry. Like, what? And it was something I'd never thought of before, but it like really put me in my head. And I started to think like now when I watch movies, like I'm very aware and I'm like, oh, they just spoke for like 35 seconds and didn't blink the whole time. that's crazy.
It is crazy.
But it was things like that that I'd never thought of before. And I really liked the challenge of taking my expressive self and having to shrink it down a little bit to where it's still me, but it's a very subtle, subdued version of me. And I liked that challenge. It was still really hard. And I still watch certain things back and I'm like, wow, you do blink a lot. Like, it's just like really subtle things like that that I'm more aware of now. But I really think that voiceover is like the perfect mix of both my theater training and my film training, because my characters in voiceover, even in anime, are very grounded in realism. And that's something that people are like, that's why I cast you, because you were able to bring truth to this character. And I knew that you could do that believably. So I do a lot of slice of life anime. But my theater training helped me because I do have good diction. I understand how to project healthily. I can scream healthily. So I'm taking aspects of all of my training and then bringing it to make my perfect kind of voiceover, if that makes sense. So I can understand now, like, why my life took the path that it did, and it led me here. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
That's awesome. I love how you were able to, like you said, everything blended together in one specific way. Film, TV, and theater are so like insanely different because, like you said, the subdued nature of everything. And I feel like a lot of TV, you know, especially now, people get really invested with like the grim dark, like the crazy in-depth stuff, like Succession, Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad.
Yep.
These are very down to earth, very realistic. Well, not Game of Thrones, but very realistic in a sense, you know, portrayals of people. But with theater, obviously, the more expressive you can be, the better in a lot of cases, because you're able to fully, you know, be someone different. And acting is the exact same way, obviously, but with a different sort of demeanor to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think what you just said about being in a slice of life show, obviously, which you have been in multiple of, that allows you to be someone different, but still be expressive at the same time, because anime inherently has a lot of emotional, you know, moments in it. So I thought that was really cool as well. Outside of being in Horimiya, you're also in Hell's Paradise, which is a more shonen-y series, but it has a lot of dark, you know, nature to it as well. I'd say this modern era of shonen, like for example, a Jujutsu Kaisen, they get really edgy. Like they get really edgy. And I feel like that allows for a lot of, like, for example, the theatrical nature of it. Like things get crazy. So you're allowed to, I'd say, express yourself more in these like more insane situations in comparison to like a romance series.
And it's been super fun to be able to play both like your like shoujo lead or rom-com lead, and then a shonen protag. But my shonen protag is like stoic and a little more subdued in terms of like what you think of as a shonen protag. So it's been really fun to explore both genres in that way, because I always thought like, I want to voice a shonen protag who's a young boy and he's like really spunky, sort of like Black Star from Soul Eater, right? Like that kind of vibe. So then to be cast in Hell's Paradise as Sagiri, who's like kind of stoic and just very controlled all the time, was really fun and not what I expected, but has also been a huge blessing, because that's not what I normally play. I normally voice something like Hori or Moda, who it takes one for the team and is like impassioned and is going to fight for what's right, but can also be like angry when needed and is loud. So then to go from being like loud and over the top to being kind of stoic it's a fun acting challenge.
It allows you to, you know, channel a different part of yourself. I can't even imagine, like, for example, you were just saying you always thought you'd be like the more impassioned, like you're able to fully not express yourself in a way, but, you know, you're able to, you know, express loudly, like in theater. Obviously you do that all the time, but with Sagiri, she's very stoic, and that's the thing. It's very completely out of the loop, in my opinion, for like theater, because in theater, if you're quiet, you're going to get yelled at for being quiet from experiences as the mumbly kid.
And it was interesting because I remember working with Mike McFarland, our director, on the show for the first episode. It was a lot about finding Sagiri's tone and kind of where she sits vocally. There was one line in particular that I read it once and he was like, okay, it needs to be flatter. And I was like, okay. We did it again and I felt like that was pretty solid. And he was like, it still needs to be flatter. And so I had to laugh because I was like, finding this balance between boring and even toned was really hard, because I didn't want to be boring. And she's not quite monotone. It's just a very controlled, steady tone. And most of the time, my inflection naturally is all over the place, right? And so are most of my characters. So I was like, how do I find stoic without being boring? And it took a little bit. I don't know that I really like felt like I settled into it until maybe episode 3. And that was when I started to feel more confident in my reads. But like, bless you, Mike McFarland, for your patience with me as we worked to figure it out together. And I felt good about it by the time we found it, but it was a journey to get there. It was.
And I think what makes characters like that especially compelling to a lot of people is when they are stoic for like such a long time, when they finally like break, in a sense, it always hits. It's like kind of effortless how it always like, I don't know, it's like a formula, but it never is bad. You know what I mean? Because you just see it's that simple.
And then even as the actor, it's like super cathartic because you've had to be controlled and limited this whole time. And then it's like, finally the dam has burst and I can act. But yeah, there were definitely some moments of that in the show too, which was really fun.
So that's actually a perfect segue to what I was about to bring up next. So, whoa, you just mentioned like that moment of catharsis, right? When you finally are able to like fully, you say, get into the role, you know what I mean? What do you think if you could choose? I assume this is going to be like choosing a child or something like that. Was there a role that like really was like, this is it? This is like my role of like, this is the one, if you have one at this point?
That was kind of like, this is me.
Yeah. Or it like resonated with you, the character or the way that you were able to portray them in a way.
Okay, cool. So I would say it's so bizarre how my first named role essentially is just me in anime form, but like a tiny bit more exaggerated. And that's Kyoko Hori from Horimiya. It was my first named role. And I remember coming in and seeing who I was cast alongside and thinking, oh my gosh, they have so many Twitter followers. Like, who am I to be cast alongside these people? So I was kind of intimidated. And I spent a lot of the first season like second guessing my choices. I felt confident in what I delivered, but in listening back now, I'm like, oh, I would have done that different and this different. But this is me 2 years ahead of time being like, well, I've learned a lot since then. So of course I'm going to say that about my own work. So I think for me, then getting to revisit the show this year for Horimiya, The Missing Pieces, this version of Hori feels like my best work, like something I'm so proud of because I finally was able to let go of the judgment of myself and my own reads and just have fun because I wasn't worried about trying to impress the people around me. I just wanted to tell the story to the best of my ability. And it allowed me to do some really goofy stuff and like give reads that I normally wouldn't have thought of and just really become the character without my actor brain constantly criticizing myself in a way that wasn't healthy, if that makes sense. So yeah, Hori in general, but also just The Missing Pieces because it was like I finally found who I was in this role.
You found
I did.
You found
You're right. That's it. We found the one piece. We can quit now.
We cracked the code. We cracked the code. Yeah, I just think that's so great, especially because this is like a sort of return to your role. This is like not your roots, obviously, but like it's the return to like I'd say like one of the foundational moments of like your career. You know what I mean? Not a victory lap because there could easily be more of the series. For the OVAs and stuff, the fans are going to eat it up. So you're able to be more of yourself. So that's I think a great way to just show it more effortlessly in a sense. You're able to realize like what you were saying, oh, this is what I was in the past. And I'm a bit impressed because what I thought you were going to say is, all right, I had to channel that past energy of me and like do an impression of myself, but then you were like, no, I'm just going to do you know what I mean? So I did want to bring this up as well. As you could tell, I have some things on the docket over here. This is actually the
tabs
first
open.
Yeah, this is the first time I've actually had to look at it because I was like, okay, hold up. Yeah, it's been effortless segues from this point on.
Excellent.
Of course. So now we're gonna get kind of meta a little bit, right? We're gonna get kind of meta because I wrote this out and I want to make sure I get it right. So you were just talking about how Hori is your first named role, but obviously every other role, well, for the most part, every other role that you've had is, oh my God, we're about to get Lelouchian. Every other role that you've had obviously has a name and has some purpose in the series that you're a part of. I saw you were in Attack on Titan, which just recently ended. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not an Attack on Titan person, of course, because I'm brain rotted with other things that are behind me at this moment. But you obviously have important roles in many of the series that you are a part of. And one of them, of course, to the many people that are brain rotted on this channel, is Moda the Milk Maid. You kind of have like a parallel journey going with her at this moment. Your career has been taking off like exponentially over the past few years, and her presence in the story has somehow been taking off exponentially over the past few years. So I just thought that was really cool. If you had any like messages for like the people who were in those background roles a lot of the time, what would you say? Like the perseverance, what would you say?
Everybody's timeline is different. A lot of people are like, wow, you started and you booked a lead role right away. And I'm like, no, it took like 5 or 6 years for me to get there. And it was working in those background roles that allowed me to see what this job really consisted of. I got to learn from all of these people around me that I would go in the booth with and watch them work and pick up on things that they did and be like, I like that. I'm going to start doing that. I took a lot of classes, and now there's just an abundance of information available online because COVID allowed us to take online Zoom classes, and those still exist. So I would say everybody's timeline's different, and social media is a blessing and a curse because we just see constant announcements from everyone, and it makes you feel like you're not enough, or you're not doing enough, or there's something more you could always be doing to get better. And yes, we're always learning, but remember where you started and then make a list of like things you've done this year so you can look back and be like, no, I was really successful this year. I accomplished a lot. And it may look different from what my friend accomplished, but I was successful on my own because I did these things. And I think just keeping that in perspective and remembering that what you've done is good enough and there will be more to come. That's really important.
If you constantly compare yourself to other people, then you're never going to feel inherently satisfied because you're viewing yourself from the lens of other people. I think that's a absolutely great thing. You were just talking about the, different paths in life, and I can't believe I didn't bring this up before, but you mentioned your random Funimation like call out at the beginning. What made you decide like this is what I want to try and do? Obviously, this is the goal at this point.
I think a lot of it was weird how it worked out timing wise, because literally like the year right before COVID was when I really started taking more classes and was like, I really enjoy this. This is fun because I can be pretty much anything within reason, right? It just matters what I sound like. And there are certainly certain roles that I don't fit, and I'm not going to audition for those because that is not my story to tell. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, I can voice anything because it doesn't matter what I look like. It just matters what I sound like to an extent. I was taking these classes and was starting to kind of like make connections. And then 6 months later, COVID hit. Film and TV work dried up. Theater work kind of dried up. I did some online Zoom plays and it just wasn't the same. It didn't fulfill me in the same way. Mm-hmm. So I invested in my own like little studio setup here at home in my closet and started auditioning for things. So it was a happy accident that the timing worked out the way it did, because I don't know if COVID hadn't happened. I honestly don't know if I would have made that leap as fully as I did. But it turned out to be like the best creative outlet I could have had because I could do it from home, but still connect with others online. So yeah, it was weird. It's fate decided that was how it was going to be. And I'm not mad about it.
Yeah, it's like one of those like butterfly effect things. You don't realize it until you're like so far in at this point. And you're like, oh, if that hadn't happened, that wouldn't have happened, and so on and so on and so on. And you start realizing all the little things.
Exactly.
And you literally, you were on the grind set, you invested in your own studio, and you were just like, it's going to be that time. I'm going to do this. And the thing is, if you were still, first and foremost, I can't imagine what a Zoom play would be like. Like, I don't know, as like a theater person somewhat, I feel like that would be so jarring. Like, I can't imagine like.
It was bizarre and they weren't bad, right? But it was soul sucking to be like, I memorized these lines. I have props and costumes. I put up a sheet behind myself so that I can use a virtual background. We're doing this for one night only for 80 people. Why did I do this? And it was just, it was so sad. And that's exactly why, because I didn't want to let go of the hope and like the joy that theater brought me. Man, I did like 3 of those and it was really soul sucking at first. So then I took a little bit of a break from theater and was like, okay, I'll focus on voiceover for a little bit. And now I'm here. Yeah,
that is how it is. And I think it is kind of crazy. We talked about, like I just said, the butterfly effect thing and how those little things can lead to this. If COVID hadn't happened, I wouldn't have gotten invested in One Piece, and that wouldn't have led to me being brain rot enough to talk on the internet about One Piece, and that wouldn't have led to Moda, and that would have led to this interview. And the same thing with you. If you hadn't had to deal with COVID, you wouldn't be a voice actor at this point. And it's just how it is. It's just how it is.
It's wild.
Yeah. And like you were just saying, the social media blessing and a curse, like, hey, that's just the power of the internet. There could be some creepy losers on the internet, but there could also be like cool people. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. So I did want to bring this up one last time before we get Lucy it again. everyone, make sure to check out Marisa's stuff. Ooh, dramatic hands. Not sure if you're on the right direction, but whichever. Make sure to check out Marisa's stuff. And what do you have going forward that you not only, are passionate about, but what is stuff you're working on at the moment that you're like, hey, this is fire?
Oh man. So we
Obviously
are
not
almost at the
DMCA. Obviously not DMCA stuff,
right.
obviously, but like, you know what I mean?
We are almost at the end of the fall anime season, so we'll be getting like winter stuff soon, which is exciting. I have no idea what's coming,
Mhm.
but some of the stuff that's been teased, I'm excited about. But what I'm working on right now that we'll be finishing up in the next few weeks, Shy is a really great anime. The art direction is stunning.
Mhm.
So I highly recommend it. My boy Stigma, he's the antagonist, and he's like a little Victorian boy with suspenders and a
Mhm.
scary umbrella. The vibes are immaculate. But yes, I
Mhm.
highly recommend checking that out. It's about superheroes saving the world. I'm in Love with the Villainess has been really fun to work on. We have our final episode will air next Monday. We're just a week
Mhm.
away.
The end of an era.
It's been, I know, I'm hoping we'll get a season 2, but we have no idea. So stay tuned to find out, but it's been great to work on. And yeah, I know we're getting the Egghead arc of One Piece
Mhm.
very soon, which is going to be
Mhm.
fun. Vegapunks, what's up? But yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I don't know what's to come, but I'm excited. There's just lots of anime happening. So
Oh yeah.
something good will come, I'm sure.
I'm personally very excited for what's to come. Like I said, you can see the brain rot here, but I'm actually rather not knowledgeable, which is kind of crazy. People think I'm like the guy, and I'm like, I literally have no idea what most of these shows are. Like,
Nope.
it's like a one and done. I'm invested, and then that's all I need. I'm good. I will say, I'm in love with the Villainous is very wholesome though. It is very
Yes.
wholesome. Yes.
It's so good.
Just want to say thank you once again for partaking in this interview, taking the time out of your day to ramble about not just, well, I mean, you're rambling about your life as well. So that's not really
No.
rambling, you know what I mean?
I'm glad we did it. We made the time limit.
We did, we could wait until we get Lucia. That would be crazy, but I don't know.
Right.
But, guys, spoiler alert, but Moda's alive. Like, so we can't really get Lucia, that's just how it is. Does it just end automatically or does it stop?
It can't, it'll kick us both out. You'll see.
Just like emo. That's crazy.
Yeah. You can go ahead and hit stop recording though, probably.
I don't know.
If you
We
want.
could let it rock though. We could let it rock. We'll just see.
It's true.
We'll see what happens.